Alright, so since I uploaded the first episode of our new hardcore series, I've been getting quite a few comments from you all saying that you weren't very happy with how I treated the villagers, and honestly, I can see why. So I think it's time that I sat down, got my thoughts together, and issued an official apology to my villagers. I'm sorry. But since actions speak louder than words, we're going to go ahead and transform this village into the perfect villager paradise to show the villagers just how sorry I am. And if for some reason that still isn't enough for them to accept my apology, I have another project up my sleeve that I think will do just the trick. Okay, since I can already tell this is going to be an absolutely massive project, I'm going to go ahead and break it up into a few different parts just to help make the entire process a whole lot easier. Starting off with the first thing we'll need to do, which is preparing the area for the new village. So here's the village. We found it last episode, and I really love the placement of it in the middle of this lake surrounded by mountains, though it still could definitely use a bit of work in some places, especially here with this huge hill in the way. So let's get rid of it. Sweet, now the lake connects up through here, and it's really starting to look like a real island. All I gotta do now is get rid of these last two segments here and tidy up the edges to make the whole thing look better. Alright, now we have the shape of the lake done. I can already tell this is gonna look amazing once we get started adding in all the details. Okay, now that we're done prepping the lake around the village, we can move on to prepping the main island for the new village. First thing we're gonna do is fill in all these really annoying caves in the center of the village. Alright, caves are filled now. It's already starting to look a whole lot better, but we've still got a lot more work to do to get the island looking how I want it to. Okay, so before we get started really terraforming the island, I think the next thing we should do is go in and fully remove the old village. That'll really open up the space and give me a better idea of where I want to start shaping it. And we'll start by getting rid of all the path blocks around the island. There we go. Now we'll go in and remove all the houses. And that should be the last house. We're gonna leave the temple for now so we can trap the villagers inside so they don't wander off and die. Okay, now the island is completely empty and we can start shaping it up. So I think the first thing we'll do is go around and detail the two cliff faces we have here so they aren't just big walls of dirt. Something like that should work. And we'll go ahead and repeat it on the other one as well. Now we can go around the island and just smooth out some of the terrain so it doesn't look so rough. And there's the terraforming for the island done, which means we finished the preparation phase for our new village. Now it's time to start designing all of the new village houses that we'll be building. The plan is to have a house for every villager profession to help give our village a bit of diversity and so that we aren't just spamming the same house all over the place and calling it finished. So we went ahead and loaded up our creative testing world, spawned in all the different villager houses, and got to work redesigning them all. We tried not to go super overboard with the redesigns, mostly just going in and adding more details to the vanilla structures to make them stand out more and to give them a bit of character. Alright, we have all the builds designed except for the farmer, since technically they don't have a designated building, just the crop fields laying around the village. So instead we're going to add in a few extra houses around the village just so no one's left out and they all have a place to call their home. Now we should just be able to go in with the mod Lightmatica and create blueprints for all of them. Okay, now we have the blueprints of all the redesigned buildings. We should just be able to hop back into the hardcore world and start planning the layout for all of them. Alright, now that all the buildings are in place, we can go in and lock the placements and start working on adding in a rough path system. We'll do this by going through and spamming some path blocks around everywhere to create a very rough path system, just to figure out how we want all the buildings to connect together. Alright, I think this will be the final layout for the village. I'm pretty happy with how it flows so far, and I tried to keep similar professions near each other because I thought that would make the most sense. Okay, now that we're finished designing all the different buildings and have the final layout locked in, we can move on to gathering up all the resources we'll need to build the entire village. Thankfully, this time we won't have to gather too many resources since we have a whole bunch of stuff saved up from our resource gathering last episode, and we have everything we dug up from removing the hill earlier. I also gathered up a full shulker of both spruce and oak logs, and I turned the skeleton spawner near spawn into a makeshift bone meal farm in between episodes because I knew we'd need a lot of this stuff in the future. All we really have left to gather up are a few other assorted building blocks and a handful of super niche decorative blocks like sea pickles and turtle eggs. Alright, now that we're done gathering up all the resources we'll need, we can move on to actually building up the new village. Okay, so we should have pretty much everything we need to get to building up the new houses, so let's jump right into it. Just gotta place in the last few blocks, and there we go. Okay, so we've got the outside of all the houses done, but as you can see, the interiors are still completely empty, so let's go ahead and add them in next. Alright, now that we've added in all the interiors, the houses are completely finished. But the village still isn't done, so let's keep working. The next thing I want to do is go around the lake and finally give it all the details it's missing. We'll start by going in and removing all the sand and gravel from the bottom of the lake because I'm not a huge fan of it, and we'll replace it with dirt and other various brownish blocks to help texture it a bit better. We'll also go in around the lake and texture the edge a bit more and add some more plant life to it so it's not looking as boring. And I think the last thing we'll do is go around adding some rocks and boulders to the bottom of the lake, as well as going through and adding in some underwater plant life. Alright, I'm actually really happy with how this lake turned out. Okay, now that the lake is finished, the next thing we're going to do is go over the temporary paths we added in earlier and finalize them so they're ready for our villagers to use. Alright, now it's all starting to come together. We've already got the basic layout for the village finished, so I guess the only thing we have left to do is to go in and fill up all the empty spaces with details. And I've already got a bunch of different ideas planned up for what we should add, so let's go ahead and start adding them in. Alright, just finished planting in the last few trees, and that should be the last detail we needed to add. And honestly, it's crazy just how much adding in the details changed the entire look and feel of the village. It went from looking pretty boring and empty to being absolutely full of life, and I am really loving it. Okay, so we have the main village built up and detailed, but there's still one more thing that I want to add before I can call this village transformation complete. I really want the villagers to be able to roam freely and explore around their new village, but the last thing I need is for a villager to wander off, swim across the lake, and then get killed by zombies that spawn outside the village. So I think if we go in and build up a wall around the lake, they won't be able to escape and they'd be able to freely roam wherever they want. So in theory, this really shouldn't be too hard to do. We're just gonna pick a spot, somewhere around here should work, and we'll do a quick ring around the village. There we go. And we're going to start pillaring up, alternating between stripped oak and stripped spruce logs, and then we'll just continue this all the way around the village. Okay, so we've got the main body of the wall built up now. The next thing we're going to do is go through and add some spruce fences to the top of all the logs to add in a bit of extra detail. And with that done, I honestly think that's going to be it for the outside wall. I don't want it to distract too much from the main village, so I think this will be perfect. So now we have the village all walled off, and I made sure to leave a whole lot of room on the inside for us to go in and decorate the terrain a bit, which is going to be the next thing we do. Alright, before we start adding in any details, we're going to go around and smooth over some of the terrain, make it look better, and also just patch up any areas that the villagers could possibly get stuck in. So I was thinking we could start in the back and add in a lush forest filled with flowers and trees, and then we'd work our way towards the front of the village, adding in a bunch of crop fields with some pathways winding through them, which means it's time to get started planting some trees. Alright, here's how it's looking so far with all the trees added in. I did leave these 3 open spaces because I wanted to build a few tall flower fields to help break up all the green from the trees. So let's go ahead and get them added in. All right, let's fly back and see how it's looking so far. Ooh, yeah, I'm really liking how this is turning out so far. Next thing we'll do is run around and light up the forest with some hidden lighting real quick, just so that we don't have to worry about any hostile mobs spawning inside our village walls. Alright, there's the last torch put in. Now the forest has been completely lit up and we shouldn't ever see any hostile mobs here. I also went ahead and spammed bone meal around everywhere to help really make it look nice and overgrown. Okay, now that the forest is finished, we can start working our way towards the front half of the village. We'll start by putting in a rough draft of the path system and where we want everything to go. And there's the rough outline done. I think the placement of everything works so far, which means it's time to go in and add all the details. I'm not gonna lie, I was a little nervous while building everything this time around because I just kept thinking that it didn't look good, but I'm glad I kept working on it because it ended up looking even better than I thought it would. Okay, now we've just got one more thing left to do before we can call this village complete. Our village doesn't have an entrance, so let's go ahead and add a quick one in. I think that looks good. And with the entrance added, that means we finally completed the village, which means it's time for the big reveal. Just think about it. We started this build off with a boring vanilla village, and over 200 days later, we have a fully custom village complete with custom terrain and a safety wall that's filled with villagers. Or at least the few that were already living there. Luckily, we still have a few extra villagers left over from our villager breeder from last episode, so we can just go ahead and move them right over to their new home. Alright, I think the best way to do this is to just ship them all over in minecarts so we can just send them off and they'll be waiting for us at the new village. So we'll go ahead and set up a quick railway system, just like that, and we'll just have it drop them off right in the center of the village. Now all we need to do is get the villagers into minecarts and we can push them over to the new village. And actually, the first thing I'm going to do is go grab a few furnace minecarts so we won't have to manually push them all ourselves. So I'll be right back.
Oh,
Someone is dying.
yeah, someone's dying.
What's dying?
I'm just gonna... Oh, he died.
No, he died.
Who died?
No. A
What
villager.
died?
Oh my...
Lee, okay, how did a villager die? What did you do to him? Did you put a
He
minecart
died.
down or something?
Oh no,
Yeah,
another
dude.
one is dying.
I'm crying.
Lee, don't put them in the minecarts until we have the fuel. Otherwise, yes,
another
they
one is
will
dead.
die.
Another one died.
Okay, don't
yeah.
stop. What are you doing? If one died the first
I
time,
already
don't
put down
do it
3,
again.
And now they're just getting back in. It's not my fault.
Why did you put them down when
Another
we
one
didn't
is
have
dying.
any? Get rid of the minecart. Do something. Okay,
Another
good
one
job,
is
Lee.
dead.
You're really bad at this, Lee. I'm not gonna lie. Okay, try this. So put the cart down not inside the wall so that they don't kill each other. So if I do this, I got it. Finally, after Lee killed like 30 villagers.
You could have had 5 of them, though.
You killed them. Don't act like that. You're the reason they're dead.
Nuh-uh.
Anyways, I'm gonna go get the furnace minecart back. Oh, the villager's flying. All right, well, I'm back now. Because put some down so that we can fix this.
Like that.
And the other died.
Did you just kill him? Oh,
No, I didn't.
I'm crying.
This block is the problem. Well, at least we were able to move 2 villagers over. Here, I'm gonna go check on the villager, make sure it's not dead yet. Oh, it got killed by a zombie, of course. You've got to be kidding. I totally jinxed it. So he did stop. Okay, well, he's dead now. Well, dang. At least we got one villager moved over. You must be really special or something. Okay, we've got the village built and the villager moved over, so I think we can go ahead and call this project complete. Now, I was hoping that building the new village would be enough to convince the villagers to forgive us, but considering we just killed like 5 more villagers back there, I don't think we've cleared our names just yet. So I think we're gonna have to move on to plan B. All right, so here's the idea. Who hates the villagers more than we do? the pillagers and their group of raiders, which means if we find a way to harm as many of these raiders as possible, that should be more than enough to get the villagers to stop hating us, at least for now. So I think it just makes sense that the next thing we're going to be building is a raid farm, and thankfully for us, there are plenty of different designs for us to choose from depending on what we're wanting. We're going to be going with the Kronos V4 raid farm design by Garlic Bread because it has just about everything we could ask for in a raid farm. It's relatively easy to build, isn't incredibly laggy, and has pretty minimal villager requirements compared to the rates that it produces, which by the way, this thing produces just under 900,000 items per hour of various different resources, with over half of them being emeralds. So we are about to be extremely rich very soon. Honestly, this farm is completely overkill at the moment, but I have a bunch of other projects planned for the future, and the sooner I start stocking up on resources, the better. But before we go ahead and start gathering up resources to build this thing, I want to make a few slight changes to it. Mostly just extending the temporary storage that comes with it, and we'll also go ahead and add in a custom totem filter so we can collect all the totems we'll ever need. I'm not going to go too crazy with the storage for now, mostly just because I don't see myself running the farm for long periods of time anytime soon, but this should be more than enough for what we're going to be needing right now. Though that does mean for the time being, most of the drops from this thing are just going to end up burning since we won't nearly be able to pick up everything, which is pretty funny. Imagine being so rich you can just throw away most of the stuff you get. Yeah. Enough of that though. Now that I've finished modifying the raid farm, we can go in again with Lightmatica to create a new schematic for it, which will let us see exactly how many items we'll need to build the farm. And it looks like it comes out to just over 6,500 items, which I know sounds like a lot, but with over half of the items just being black stained glass and various deep slate tile blocks, this shouldn't be too hard to collect. Alright, so we have the farm design picked out, we have the materials list prepared, all we have to do is go out and gather up all the resources we need. And just like with the village, we're going to break it up into a few different parts just to help make it easier. And actually, the first thing we're going to do to start our resource collecting is build up a few farms that we'll need. Since this is going to be the first of many large redstone builds on this world, we're going to want to set up some farms to make sure we'll have plenty of all the different resources these kinds of builds use. And right now, we're going to focus on farming slime for various components and shulker boxes for storage. Last episode, we only needed a handful of slime balls so we could get away with running around a swamp at night to get them, but we're going to need a steady supply of the stuff going forward, so it's about time we went ahead and set ourselves up a proper slime farm. Thankfully, the meta for building slime farms has changed a lot since the last time I've needed to build one, and you can easily make a really fast slime farm right above a swamp biome without having to dig out an entire chunk for it. And I'm very happy about that. As for gathering the resources for it, this farm has an incredibly simple materials list, and we pretty much already have everything we need sitting in chests left over from our other builds. The longest part of it was mostly just waiting for all the smooth stone to smelt and going and collecting 7 stacks of brown mushrooms, but even then, that really didn't take too long. Okay, so we've got all the materials ready. All we need to do now is find a spot in the swamp to build it. And I think right over here, over this bit of water, should work perfectly for it. All right then, let's go ahead and build it. And there we go. The slime farm is now complete. Just missed day 300, but that's okay. Now, I'm curious to see just how fast this farm runs since I've never had a swamp-based slime farm before. So I'm gonna let this thing run for about 30 minutes and we'll come back and see just how much slime we get. Okay, timer just went off, so it's time to check out what we got. Okay, then I guess that means we have all the slime we'll need now, which means it's time to move on to the next farm we'll need, which is a shulker farm. So this is going to be an interesting one. I've never actually built a shulker farm before, so I'm hoping it all goes well. And thankfully, just like the slime farm, we pretty much have everything we need to build it already. We just need to wait for more smooth stone to smelt, and we'll need to craft up the missing scaffolding for it. So we already have all the bamboo we'll need for it, but I'm honestly really tired of having to go out and kill spiders to collect string, and I don't feel like building an entire farm for it at the moment. So instead, I'm just going to build up a string duper and call it done. So if you have a problem with that, you should probably look away. Now that's what I'm talking about. Okay, then I guess we'll go ahead and craft up all the scaffolding we need, and we should be ready to make our way to the end. So there should be an end city not too far away from here that we purposefully skipped while end busting. So we're going to build the farm there because it should have plenty of shulkers for us to work with. We'll just go ahead and clear the area next to it and get to building. And there we go. The farm is fully built. All we need to do now is get a shulker into the center of it, which unfortunately is easier said than done. One got in, one's in. I don't even know how that happened, but I guess that should be running now. Okay, then we'll go ahead and let this run for a few minutes and we'll see how many shulker shells we can get. Okay, it's only been just a few minutes. Let's give it a little peek and see how many we have so far. Wow, we have 5 stacks already. All right, then that honestly should be more than enough shulker boxes for what we'll need. So I'm gonna go ahead and pack them all up and we can head on home. Yeah. Okay, now that we've finished the 2 farms we needed, we can get started gathering up some more of the materials we'll need to build the raid farm. First, we'll go ahead and sort through all the materials we have laying around and we'll gather up everything we have already that'll be used in the farm. All right, so we've gone ahead and put all the materials we already have into these shulker boxes right here, and we'll go ahead and pick them up and move them over to where we're gonna be building the farm. So to get the raid farm started, we'll need the bad omen effect, and the easiest way to get a steady supply of it is from a pillager outpost. And luckily we have one that actually isn't too far away from spawn, and as a bonus, it's right next to a village and an ocean we can build the farm over. So it's pretty much the perfect setup for it. So we're gonna drop down. Right over here should work, and we'll go ahead and clear out an area, place all of our stuff down, and set up a temporary base camp. Okay, the first thing I want to do now that we're here is set up a villager breeder. We're going to need to move 16 villagers into the farm once it's ready, and this village definitely doesn't have enough villagers for that. I'm just going to rebuild the same design we used last episode, and I'll go ahead and give them plenty of food so I can stay running in the background while we get started gathering the rest of the materials. Alright, we've got a good chunk of the materials collected now, but I just came back to base camp to clean up my inventory a bit, and I realized that the villager breeder isn't working. You can see that they get the hearts for a bit, and then they get the angry particles, which means they failed to make a child. So now I get to play. Let's find out what's wrong with the breeder. Okay, that ended up taking a while, but now it's working perfectly fine. Somehow, some of the villagers in the holding pod were pathfinding to some of the beds in the breeder pods, and that's what was causing the villager breeding to fail. Thankfully, though, it was a simple enough fix. Yeah, this really doesn't make me look good. Okay, I've been watching it for a bit now, and it looks like it's back up and running at full speed, so we should be able to get back to collecting the rest of the resources. There we go. We should have just about everything we'll need to start crafting up all the components needed for the farm. I'm pretty much just waiting on some more honey from our bees over here. So while we're waiting, we're gonna go ahead and get started grinding through all of the crafting. All right, we're pretty much done with the crafting for now. Still waiting to collect some more honey for the few honey blocks we'll need, but pretty much everything else is already stored up in these few shulker boxes right here. Very compact. But we're actually not quite finished with gathering things for the farm just yet, and I made sure to save the hardest ones for last. This farm requires us to get 3 beacons, and to get a beacon, you need to get a nether star, which you get from killing a wither, which uses 3 wither skeleton skulls to spawn, which you can get as a rare drop from killing a bunch of wither skeletons. Now that's a mouthful. So it looks like we're going to be spending a good amount of time in the nether. Since the nether fortress we found last episode was pretty much completely buried underground, we decided to go and find a new nether fortress that was either mostly above lava or in a soul sand valley or warp forest biome. This will help improve our spawn rates since there won't be many mobs spawning outside of the fortress, which is perfect because the more wither skeletons we can get to spawn at once, the sooner we'll be able to get the 9 skulls we need. And after a bit more flying, we found this nether fortress right here with a big chunk of it above lava, with the rest of it being in a warped forest biome, which was perfect. Alright then, I'm really crossing my fingers this doesn't take us too long. I only have 1.
Yeah, I also have 1.
I got 1.
Got 1. 3.
I shot it back at you. Oh, and it fell.
Bruh.
Wait. I didn't drop anything in.
I got 4. I got 1.
Wait, it picked up its own wither head.
Mine.
Okay, that only took us about an hour to get all 9 skulls. I'm honestly really surprised. It felt like it was way longer than an hour, but you know, I will take it. And we're back. So before we get to killing the withers, I want to go ahead and grab the very last thing we'll need to build the farm, which are a few allays. The totem sorter I built for our raid farm earlier requires allays to do all the sorting, which means we'll have to go out and look for some if we want to be able to build it. But it'll give us way more totems than we'll ever need, so it'll be well worth the effort to go and get them. All I need to do is go out and find a pillager outpost that has them. Oh, there we go. Let's go ahead and get you both out of here and we'll head on back to base camp. Perfect. All right, now we've got our allays here and we've already duplicated them. So all we have left to do is go and kill those withers for the beacons, which means it's time to head over to the end. Now you can call me a wimp all you want, but I'm not taking any chances with the withers right now. So we're just gonna go ahead and cheese them under the exit portal in the end. I promise I'll do a legit wither fight at some point, but for now, we're just gonna do this. And there we go. We've got our 3 nether stars now, which means we can head back to base camp and craft up our beacons. All right then, now that we have all the materials we need to go ahead and build up the farm, we'll go ahead and fly out to where we're gonna build it and we'll get started. Okay, that should be the last few blocks we needed to put in. We're gonna quickly run the schematic verifier and just double check to make sure everything is in place. Looks like everything is all good. Don't have anything popping up as wrong on the schematic, so we should be able to get started moving our villagers into place. First, we'll have to fly back over to the village, and starting over by the villager breeder, we'll go ahead and start building ourselves a bridge out to the first villager pod. And that should do it. Now this time I've actually made sure we won't kill our villagers trying to get them into the minecarts, so we should just be able to set the minecart down here, and off he goes. Then we'll go ahead and fly over to the pod, and once the villager is in place, we'll go ahead and break the minecart, and now we have our first villager in place. Now we just have to repeat the same process for the next 15 pods.
What the?
All right, we've just got one last villager to put in place, and since we ran out of powered rails earlier, we'll have to take them up the rest of the way using a furnace minecart. Finally, the last villager is in place, and we don't have to try and move these guys anymore. Thank goodness, these dudes are the worst to deal with. Unfortunately, even though we're done moving the villagers, we still have a few more mobs left to put in place. So we'll go ahead and fly back down, grab 3 of our allays, and we'll fly them up to the raid farm. So we already have everything set up for the totem sorter. All we have to do now is get these allays stuck inside of these hoppers so they can pick up and drop off all the totems that come by, which means we're gonna have to do a little bit of finagling to get them into place. First, we'll give them a dummy item. I'll just go with steak since I have a lot of it right now. Then we'll go ahead and surround one of the hoppers with blocks, and we'll use a lever to lock the hopper underneath. Now we'll throw a piece of steak into the hole and wait for an allay to fly in. And once it's in, we'll go ahead and place an upside down stair above it. Now all we have to do is use a piston to push the stair in place, and now we've got our allay trapped. Now we just need to go ahead and do the same thing for the remaining 2 allays we have. Okay, now that our allays are in place, if we go ahead and add a quick observer clock above them hooked up to a note block, it'll constantly trigger the allays to look for items to pick up and drop off. And yes, I turned my note block sounds off because I'd rather not have to listen to this noise being played until the end of time. And with that, we're pretty much done with the totem sorter. Now all that it's missing is, well, the totems, since after all, the allays need to hold totems to be able to sort them. And to get them, we can go ahead and do a quick test run on the farm. Mostly just to make sure it's completely functional and hopefully won't blow itself up, but we'll also get a handful of totems out of it to finish setting up the totem sorter. First things first, we'll do one last check of the schematic verifier just to triple check to make sure everything is in place and in the right state. And thankfully we did, because Lee had accidentally left a lever from when we were adding in the villagers that would have messed up one of our villager banks, which would have caused the farm to just not work. And that's why you always double and triple check your schematic verifier. Very, very easy for small things to cause big problems in your redstone builds. Next thing we need to do is pre-stock the storage system full of empty shulker boxes, since this farm uses shulker box loaders to try and handle just how many items it produces. Thankfully, we have more than enough shulker shells and wood to craft a good chunk of them, so we'll go ahead and do that now. That should be plenty for right now. I'll make sure to fully stock it up later when I need to AFK here for a while. And with that done, that means we finally finished building the raid farm, which means that all we have left to do is make sure it works. So now that we're ready to run the farm, I'll go ahead and fly over to the pillager outpost to get the bad omen effect. Just need to find one of the banner dudes. There's one. All right. Oh, did it not give me? It didn't give me I think it died of fall damage and didn't give me the bad omen.
Are you kidding me?
I got the achievement, but I don't have bad omen on. That's hilarious. Okay, wait, no, I need to get another one now. There we go. And we can go ahead and fly back over to the farm. Now, this farm is a bit special and only works if you swing your sword at a very specific rate. And because of that, we'll have to use the carpet mod to perfectly time our inputs. So we'll go ahead and get our attack and stop commands ready. And for those wondering, I've already set up the config for this world to let me run the /player command without having to open to land with cheats enabled, because I really would rather not do that. So now we have our commands ready. All we have to do is walk into the killing chamber, wait a second or so, and swing our sword once to hit one of the mine carts. Now, I'm gonna go into free cam real quick to make it easier to see, but we're pretty much just waiting to see all of the raid mobs spawn in up here at the top. All right, now that all the raid mobs have spawned in, we can run our attack command to start up the farm. But we're not gonna let it get up to full speed just yet, so I'm gonna run the stop command and we'll go ahead and despawn the remaining raid mobs by flying away for a bit. Now we can go in and add our totems to the totem sorter. So now that we have the farm fully built and we know it's functioning, I think the right thing to do is to go for a quick AFK session just to see what we can get out of this thing. So I'll quickly go get bad omen again. And I'm gonna go ahead and set a 30-minute timer and we'll come back and see what we have after it's done. All right, 30 minutes is done and we're sitting at an amazing 6 frames a second. Okay, let's go ahead and clear up the mobs real quick before my PC explodes. Now, if you look above my hotbar, you'll see that I'm sitting at a comfortable 150 levels, which is very nice. All right, let's go and see how much stuff we got after AFKing for 30 minutes. Oh, sweet, we have 30 shulker boxes of emeralds. And this isn't even all the emeralds we could have collected. Most of them still ended up getting burned because we couldn't collect them all fast enough. Not bad. Not bad on the redstone and gunpowder either at 10 shulkers each. We definitely won't be running out of this stuff anytime soon. All right, time for what we've all been waiting for. How many totems did we get? Now that. Oh, wow. It's backed up entirely. It's all backed up. I have never seen this many totems before. That is crazy. Also, I thought it'd be fun to join in on making my own custom totem texture, so now it matches my skin and has a halo, and it shines. All right, well, I've had my turn running the farm, so I'm gonna go ahead and let Lee AFK for 30 minutes or so as well. Dang, looking good at 144 levels. And now we've also got a nice 64 shulkers of emeralds and 21 shulkers each of redstone and gunpowder. I still can't believe how fast this farm is. Yeah, there's really not much else to say except that this farm is way too over the top, but I absolutely love it. Okay, I think the last thing we're gonna do is go ahead and fully stock up on empty shulker boxes just so we're ready to run the farm again later. And I think that means we're finished now. Let's go and see what the villagers have to say about it. So after all that I've shown you today, I feel like we are more than worthy of being forgiven. As long as you ignore the handful of villagers that ended up dying for various reasons. But I've proven that we've changed. So what do you say? Do you accept my apology? Yeah, I didn't think it was gonna work either.